It's the After Show with Telecom TV's Guy Daniels and Ray LeMaitre.
Yes, welcome to the After Show on Telecom TV. I'm Guy Daniels, Director of Content, and we are broadcasting live and waiting to hear from you, our audience, at the end of day 2, the final day of the DSP Leaders Summit on Edgenomics. And we've got a great lineup of guests joining us again today, and we're going to answer as many of your questions as we can. So if you haven't yet got in touch, then please do so now. The sooner the better. Don't leave it too late. And co-hosting the After Show is, of course, Ray LeMaitre, Editorial Director at TelecomTV. Ray, I can't even say my words today. Editorial Director at TelecomTV. I should enunciate a little bit better. Ray, our first roundtable today considered the justification for telco edge computing, and 3 of our panelists have joined us for our live Q&A now. So I expect we'll hear more on this as the show progresses. And we also had a second roundtable that explored the integration with Open RAN, another hot topic there. A lot to digest.
Yeah, absolutely. An awful lot to consider from so many different angles. And I think what we're really seeing now is a mix of internal and customer-facing justifications for edge investments. A broad deployment of virtual RAN, for example, could be enough in itself to be the catalyst for a distributed edge computing rollout. At the same time, there really does appear to be a genuine appetite in the enterprise community for edge-enabled services. The big questions for CSPs, though, is whether they are the go-to partner for those enterprise users.
Yes, the CSPs are certainly hoping so, Ray. It's becoming an ever more complicated picture, this. Well, let's hear what our guests think about this. And joining us live on the program today are Javier Benitez, who is Senior Network Architect, Strategy and Innovation for Colt Technology Services. Azhar Sayeed, who is Chief Architect, Service Provider with Red Hat. Balaji Subramaniam, who is Director Product Line Management for Blue Planet. And Beth Cohen, SDN Product Strategies with Verizon. Hello everyone, very good to see you all again. Lots of audience questions to get through in the next 40-45 minutes or so. So Ray, over to you for our first question.
Thanks very much, Guy. So Azhar, the first question today is going to come to you first. And the question is virtual RAN and Open RAN possible without a dense distributed edge platform? And does vRAN need a dedicated edge? So I guess 2 questions there, though, of course, very related.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Guy. First, let's try to understand what is part of the vRAN deployment. If you look at what we are really deploying with respect to vRAN or Cloud RAN in those edge locations, you have to deploy, first of all, closer to the cell site, and you have to deploy a compute platform to host a CU central unit and a DU distributed unit. Those 2 components form part of the Open RAN components, and they need to be hosted on a general purpose compute platform. So when you start to deploy a general purpose compute platform with software layer, with a Kubernetes platform layer, for example, and then host these applications, you have to go much closer to the cell site to do that. Now, the question is, do we need a dense model? I mean, does it have to be really dense to be able to go deploy the distributed edge? My viewpoint is very, very simple. You need to go literally as close to the cell site as possible to get the real benefit of the split RAN model. You can centralize the RAN. You can actually deploy in a regional data center, but you're not going to be able to offer those type of services that are required for ultra reliable, low latency, and so on. So if your plan is to offer that, then you have to distribute it out further. Whether it is dense, urban, or rural, doesn't matter. You should be able to still deploy the same compute platform to be able to do that. So that's part of the first question. The second question is, what about the edge context to this? Where can I deploy that particular edge? Where you're aggregating some of these RAN components, you can, because you're already deploying a compute platform there, you can host other applications. You can host other edge applications. With CU, mostly a UPF is deployed. With UPF, you can direct local traffic. You can then deploy a whole bunch of edge applications at that particular location.
Okay, great. Thanks, Azhar. And Javier, you wanted to come in on this as well. What are the requirements for vRAN and ORAN?
Yeah, I just wanted to provide the perspective from a fixed line operator like Colt, because there is the perspective of private 5G, and this is the area that we are focused on at the moment. And from that perspective, trying to answer the question, the first one, the density, in that case, we just need to reach the end customer, so the customer premise. So obviously you need to be there. So the density will be dictated by where you want to deliver this private 5G functionality, and then the central components that are also part of the vRAN can definitely be centralized in our network edge. So from that perspective, you need just the density to reach the end customer, and then centralize some of the applications. From the general purpose point of view, I think the question was whether you need to have a dedicated edge to deliver this functionality. Our view is that you don't have to. So you can actually mix and match with other applications and use the same distributed edge to deliver other applications as well.
Okay, excellent. Great. Thank you, Javier. If we don't have any more takers for that question, I will hand back over to you, Guy, for our second question of the day.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ray. Javier, this is your first time on the after show, so we've got a quick question for you, and we've been asking this of all our guests this year during their first appearance on the show, and that is, what got you into telecoms? How did you get your career start in this industry?
Yeah, so in my case, I made the decision for my bachelor degree or undergraduate studies quite early, and that was actually a telecommunications engineering degree. So from my university days, I mean that was clear to me. I was always inspired and interested about telecommunication systems in general. When I started, the internet was just not there, so it was more how the telephone system works, how the TV system works, etc. So yeah, my degree was in telecommunications, so that was the start of my career. And then I was lucky enough to get a fellowship. I was admitted by quite a good university in the US, Stanford University. So I did a master's degree there. And was then at that time be able to move more into the networking side of things, internet, data protocols that have been really the biggest part of my career.
Oh, that's great to hear. I mean, it is such a fascinating industry, this, and to have that vision and that goal, and to specialize in that. That's a good lesson for a lot of college kids at the moment, I think. Thanks for that. And let's move on to our next viewer question, which is, do large enterprises want different edge services than SMEs? So are large companies building their own edge platforms perhaps by expanding their own IT? Javier, have you got any thoughts and views on what you're seeing here?
Well, we see different expectations and different requirements, obviously from large and small customers, but not because of age, just because of the fact that they typically require different type of services. And there is nothing new with edge now as a technology. At the end of the day, the important thing here is the service, and the service that is demanded by different type of customers, different verticals, is typically different. Just to give you a perspective, what we see is from our perspective as an operator is three different buckets of opportunities and services for customers around distributed edge. One is what we call edge networking, that is adding an edge component to an existing network service, typically based on a digital customer experience, and this is a type of service that we see being demanded by both large and small customers and across all verticals. Then there is another bucket of services around edge hosting. And this is more for over-the-top service providers, vendors that want to host some infrastructure services in our distributed edge. So this is definitely more for wholesale type of customers. And then finally, a third bucket of services that is around building dedicated edge solutions, so complex solutions that are developed on top of a distributed edge. And this is definitely more targeted for large enterprises asking complex solutions like it could be a multi-cloud, virtual WAN type of solutions. So yeah, I mean, as a summary, different type of customers obviously demand different type of edge services. But yeah, we see common demand on some areas, some dedicated specialized services in others, as I think it happens across all technologies.
Yeah, great, thanks. So not necessarily to do with the edge per se, this is just the types of companies and their businesses themselves. Beth, you'd like to come in on this one as well?
I definitely would. So we do also find, like Javier said, a differentiation between the larger companies and the SMEs, or the SMBs rather, the smaller companies. So it really splits into, and the services might be the same, but they need to be packaged differently. So the enterprise, we frequently find have some extremely complex requirements, particularly around what applications they want. They frequently have customized applications that they want to deploy out at the edge. A lot of them are quite sophisticated about how they're thinking about how to use the edge. We have one company we're working with that's thinking of basically packaging up. It's a retailer. They want to do some really interesting things around video and some other very sophisticated things. And then we have other customers, particularly down market, that are less sophisticated about the types of applications. They typically are relying on cloud-based applications. And they do want to take advantage of edge. They recognize that edge, it gives them more flexibility about what they're doing, and not everything fits in the cloud. And sometimes edge applications perform better. And so what they tend to be looking for is more prepackaged solutions. So the package we offer, Application Edge, really gives them that mix where SIs and other types of so mid-layer companies can come in prepackaged. Let's say a medical application. I'll just pick that at random, and that they can go then to sort of medical offices and say, "Hi, we have this prepackaged solution. You pay X amount a month, and you get your network services, you get your applications to manage your practice, all in a nice, neat bundle that you don't have to worry about." That means that they don't have to, try to keep and maintain IT services, particularly the SMB and the mid-market. IT is pretty thin on the ground. And so those types of packages are very attractive to that market.
Great, good point there. Thank you, Beth. Any of our other guests want to come in on this topic? Otherwise, we'll move on. I think we'll move on then, Ray, because we do have a lot of questions here today. So I'll hand over to you for our next viewer question.
Okay, great. Thanks, Guy. Balaji, it's also your first time on the after show. So we're also going to ask you, how did you start your career in telecoms?
Thanks, Ray. I'm going to date myself a little bit here, I guess. Those were interesting times when I started in telecom, when I had to explain ATM didn't have anything to do with banking or finance industry. And I started off at the time when ATM and SS7 and things were in vogue. I even recall it was very interesting where I had to explain once how a telephone worked to an immigration officer as part of my travel. So what interested me most was the sheer breadth of things that you can have here in terms of developing a protocol stack or thinking about resiliency, thinking about how networks evolve and so on. And it's a very interesting career as well, in the sense that you can see that how this whole technology has evolved right from the days of ATM and SS7 and all the way to 5G today. And you can also move across the stack, if you will. And that's where I am today.
Excellent. Yeah, and it's a very fast-moving industry. Turn your black or blink for a minute and you miss the next development, that's for sure. Now, here's our next question that's come in. It's going to come to you, Balaji. Enterprises are being told that 5G and Edge can transform their operations, but how can the proposed benefits be measured? So how can these enterprises know that they're going to make some kind of advance or get some benefits from this? And when does it make sense for enterprises to embrace Edge services? Is there an answer to that question at all?
Yeah, I'll try to. Right. So I tend to sort of view those in three different dimensions, if you will. Right. The first one is what I call as operational excellence and OpEx reduction, if you will, where enterprises want to think about, how can I reduce my costs if I have to roll out new services, if I have to roll out new applications, if I have to upgrade my applications, and if I want to consume those in a way that I'm used to consuming with, let's say, the cloud providers, right? Like it should be on demand, on tap, right? For example, I may be a retail customer, and I might have an iPhone sale, or I might have a Boxing Day sale, or what have you. And I need to plan for those and make sure that, I have all the things necessary that I can do on demand, turn it on, do it quickly, and then turn it off when I don't need it. And I need to have a way to measure that. So what that means is that the vendors and the providers need to step up to offer dashboards and capabilities around metrics, where you can really show the enterprises that here is how many moves you've done, here is how many upgrades you've done, here is how many changes that you've done, so that it's very visible and they get a good user experience around that. The second dimension I look at is more around how do I use this to increase my revenues, and what is the marketplace for my applications, so that I have a choice here, right? So that I'm not tied to one provider, or I'm not tied to one application service provider, right? And having a good ecosystem, having a good marketplace is going to be very, very vital and critical. And the way you kind of want to measure there is to look at switching costs. For example, I buy an application via a service provider. How quickly can I integrate that with my ecosystem? How quickly can I change in case I find that this is not working for me? I want to try an alternative, right? So that is sort of the second dimension. The third dimension I kind of look at is very, very, very niche or industry specific app, I would say, where you have a very, very unique need that you want to satisfy, and it can be done only by, let's say, a particular provider, and which service provider can lead me towards that. For example, I might have a lot to do with, let's say, machine learning, or I want to move data, and I find that a particular type of cloud service provider is offering me benefits around that area. So how do I sort of get to that, right? So it's really a combination of these three things, and having good metrics around measuring those, and then arriving at is this really working, and constantly tracking on that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Balaji. And great point about the metrics, the analytics, dashboards for enterprises. Azhar, you wanted to come in on this as well.
Yeah, a couple of points I'd like to add to Balaji's. I think Balaji covered a good number of points there, but there are a few. First of all, if you look at 5G, what's 5G really trying to do? It addresses two basic requirements. One, a high-speed connectivity model. Two, a low latency capability. Today, I actually have in North America, one of the three large providers is actually offering me a home broadband service based on 5G, which is supposedly better in terms of both uplink and downlink speeds than what I would get through my cable provider, or what I would get through my DSL provider. So there you have it, right? That's kind of the first step to go into an enterprise and say, well, I can connect your branches up through wireless connectivity through 5G and get that. So that's one aspect of 5G element coming into this picture. Now, with that, what a telco can do is bundle that or build that with some edge applications to provide local data hosting capabilities, localized applications, localized, information for those enterprises for them to be able to consume. That's what we're really seeing. I think two other data points how enterprises can use the 5G capability and how they can actually measure and then go after these edge capabilities and utilize them and deploy them.
Okay, thanks, Azhar. Beth, you wanted to come in as well. When does it make sense for enterprises, and how can they measure the benefits of 5G and edge?
Well, as the one of the providers that is offering that that edge 5G edge capability, fixed wireless 5G, it's very attractive to enterprises. And it's attractive to the telecoms too, right? Because we don't have to string wires out to the edge. We have a lot more, or out to the sites rather. So that gives both the customer and the enterprise and us a lot more flexibility in terms of being able to bring up sites that much faster, as long as the 5G capability is there already in the location. You don't have to worry about running trucks out to pull the wires and I can tell you the experience of rolling out FiOS was. I own FiOS. It's a fantastic service, but it's fiber and it's expensive to roll it out to every single property. So it only really makes sense in the densest of areas. And so I think there's a lot of legs to bringing 5G out to to the enterprise and also out to areas that are less well served today. And of course, the way that Verizon rolled out 5G, we have the higher speeds and the lower speeds as well. So we have flexibility in terms of, the higher speed obviously requires higher density of the services just to deliver the higher speed, and then most companies are doing primarily the lower speed 5G. So again, that gives flexibility to the enterprise. But I think that for the enterprise, it's an extremely attractive proposition.
Okay, thank you, Beth. And Javier, is there a way for enterprises to, measure the benefits they could get or are getting from this combination of 5G and edge?
Yeah, specifically for the edge, as we don't focus that much on 5G, even though we are doing private 5G type of implementations. What I wanted to highlight is that there is an immediate benefit that we see in terms of customer digital experience, right? And you don't need any metric to show that, which is just moving from taking days or weeks to deliver a service to just delivering it in real time, which is what is happening right now with edge and distributed edge. So if you have to deploy a router, if you have to deploy a firewall, which is a physical appliance, as opposed to instantiating this in software in real time. So that's an immediate and evident benefit that you can show to customers today that doesn't need any metrics. Customers immediately understand that this type of benefits.
Okay, yeah, excellent point, Javier. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we've had a full complement of answers on that question. So, Guy, I'll hand back over to you for the next one.
Yep, thank you, Ray. And a reminder to our viewers, please keep the questions coming in, please, and we'll get through as many of them as we can. And in answer to a question we've just received about could we turn on live closed captioning for the after show, we are actually seriously considering a number of different candidate technologies and options. So watch this space because hopefully it'll be coming soon. Right, our next question in is heading towards Beth, I think. Beth, in what cases are telcos the best edge services partners for enterprises instead of the cloud companies or systems integrators?
Excellent question. I think there's always going to be some cloud component in the majority of edge applications. However, the packaging of the network with the edge is means that that the customer can really benefit from, sort of a single throat to choke, so to speak. My opinion is that it really makes the most sense where a customer needs a packaged solution that requires, sort of one one capability that fits together with the wire with the network. So something that's highly dependent upon the network, low latency. So we see the examples that I'll use is deployments in stadiums, which of course are very, very dependent upon high amounts of bandwidth to support the thousands of or in some cases hundreds of thousands of customers using the services at the same time and heightening their digital experience. And we've had great success with those types of applications. Since they're so dependent upon the edge itself, and not so much the cloud provider doesn't really play a role in those types of applications. There's other applications such as where we're going into the private 5G private MEC, where again the cloud provider has less insight or less capability of touching into those locations. So, I use an example, campus. Cloud provider is not there. The telco is. So again, it makes sense to have to look to the telco to provide that type of deep understanding of how to deploy applications out at the edge and how to deploy distributed applications.
Thanks, Beth. So as you say, it's really about who has the most insight, and the key here is edge services. We are talking edge services, not just non-specific cloud services. Balaji, you'd like to come in, and then Azhar, we'll go across to you.
Sure. I'd just like to add to what Beth was saying, which is anything that is distributed and anything that requires resiliency, like the telco providers absolutely get what resiliency is about, right? And anything that gets distributed, the telco service provider is the best place to sort of go and get that. And this huge dependency with the network for running your applications on the edge automatically and naturally means that the telco is going to be your best partner to sort of do that kind of thing.
Sorry, I'll be a little bit controversial. I think I agree with Beth on one point, which is telco has the connectivity and certainly connectivity with that edge presence because they already have the real estate on those central offices or edge data centers or POPs, edge POPs, right? So certainly they are in a better position to provide that. And that's the reason why even hyperscalers are partnering with telcos to enter that market. I think the part that I'm going to be a little bit controversial on is that hyperscalers also know how to run resiliency, scale, distribution, and they also have managed very, very large infrastructure. So it's not like they're far behind or they are, they do not know how to do this. They definitely do know how to do that. And hyperscalers also bring a very rich ecosystem of applications that are part of their cloud platform. And they can easily move them from those central cloud locations to those edge locations. And that's the reason why you see so much of investment from AWS, from Azure, and from others in terms of creating these edge points of presence using Wavelength or Azure Stack Hub or Google Anthos and so on. Because they want to get after that particular market. So I think there is a race. There is a race there in terms of both sides. Yes, connectivity is actually going to govern because who owns the customer and who owns the last mile will definitely have a say. But the way I see it is it's more like a cooperation, right? This competition and cooperation that's happening both between telcos and these hyperscalers for that particular edge presence.
Azhar, we always encourage a range of ideas and views. This is what the after show is all about. Beth, come back with some extra thoughts there.
I do want to come back on that. So what we have found is the hyperscalers are really good at applications. They're not really good at distributed applications because, let's be honest, the telcos have been, running distributed applications for literally decades. And, there's running an application in a centralized data center, and absolutely they get the resiliency and all that stuff down pat in a data center, and running the same thing at high availability and resiliency at the edge or distributed is a totally different animal. And I think it's a really hard leap for them to get to be able to do that or to get to understand that, because the fact is the telcos are decades ahead in that aspect. And yes, there is certainly a great opportunity for cooperation. Wavelength is moving in that direction, but the cloud providers will never own that customer location, which the telcos always will own. And so that's where the real edge, that's the, a lot of people think of edge as, oh, it's in the, telco pop. But in my mind, I always think of the edge as being out at the customer location or out at the wellhead or, out on the ship or, on in the car or on the drone. And so really those are the much harder types of edge for the cloud providers to really address.
Yeah, Beth, it's at the edge. It's at the edge. I completely agree with you on that one. And it wouldn't be the after show without a discussion between the telcos and the hyperscalers, let's face it. Thanks everyone for those comments and remarks. I think in that case, we'll go back over to you, Ray, for our next question.
Absolutely. Thanks, Guy. Okay, our next viewer question is, are service providers able to guarantee low latencies, and will there be SLAs against low latency services? So that's a pretty pointed question. Does anybody want to pick up on that one at all? Any guarantees about low latencies? Okay, Beth, we'll come to you first.
Yeah, I'll pick that up, as I'm sure Javier will have something to say about it as well. So, we do provide guarantees for low latency and other types of things. However, we only guarantee it in where we actually own the network, because, let's face it, if you don't own the network, you can't guarantee anything. And I don't know if you've checked recently, but you should definitely check the cloud service providers SLAs, or I would say lack thereof. And you have to be not only responsible, to give an SLA, which we do. You have to be able to own it. So that's kind of the bottom line. Okay, excellent. Thanks, Beth. Yep, Javier, and then Azhar.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with Beth. I mean, I was wondering if service providers cannot guarantee latency, who is going to guarantee, right? So when we own the network and deliver the connectivity, obviously we will guarantee it, and we know how to do that for connectivity services, and we know how to deliver SLAs. And if you think about it, it's not only for really use cases like 5G, ultra low latency, even other type of services that we deliver on a daily basis, as simple as an internet access, has a latency component. There is a limit on how much you can centralize a particular VNF that is supporting an internet access service, and our customers will notice if you don't have that service running on their city or in the country to reach a local exchange. So definitely, I mean, we know how to do that. We've delivered services for decades that guarantee latency and delivers this type of SLA to the end customer. So in the context of distributed edge, obviously, I mean, we will be able to do that whenever we own the network.
Okay, great. Thank you, Javier. Azhar.
Yeah, Ray. So the point I'll make is a lot has changed from the early 2000s to now in terms of latency guarantees. I distinctly remember a conversation with a telco in mid 2000s where they were measuring if a fiber rerouted based on Sonnet rerouting that using ping times between two locations, and then they noticed, oh, there was something that happened in Sonnet repair, right? And my latency just changed. From that to now, where SLAs, as Beth was just talking about, which are very different. The way and there are guarantees. The way I see it is, if a telco is offering a low latency service, then those low latency services have to be defined, and they will have to stick by. Otherwise, a consumer or an enterprise is not going to pay for that particular low latency service. So absolutely, there is. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the infrastructure in terms of telemetry that's needed to provide those guarantees, in terms of performance that's needed from a hardware platform perspective, because that's what we care about, and that's what we are being asked by different telcos to provide as part of the platform: QoS, QFI, QCI capabilities to be able to manage as part of that platform. And so we are getting increasingly those requests from telco to enable this capability on the platform so that they can then measure and provide those level of guarantees to the enterprise customers.
Absolutely, and hence the growing demand as well for predictive assurance as well, to be able to find any potential problems in advance and deal with them there. Okay, great. I think if we have all the answers to that one, we can move on and come back to you, Guy.
Thank you, Ray. Well, it's that time again. It's time to check in on our audience poll. We've got a new poll for each day of this summit. 1 question, 5 multiple choice answers. It's right here on the website and it's quick and easy to complete. And today's question asks, which of the following areas need the most industry development in 2021? And you can see that we've given you 4 suggestions or the option of something else. This is some real-time data coming in here, I believe, of a split of opinions. And look at that. Well, half of you think it's the operator edge business use cases that need the most development. And the question here is really focused on what need the most development this year. Surprisingly, nothing at all for the orchestration software. Perhaps we all think there's been sufficient development, or it's going at a sufficiently good pace. So please let us know what you think and click on your answer selection if you haven't already done so. We're keeping the polls open all week, and the more responses we get, the more representative it will be. Okay, back to our Q&A. We still have time for about probably 1 question. I think we've gone about 40 minutes already. It's been a great discussion. So over to you, and Ray, let's see how many we can get in.
Okay, thanks, Guy. So our next question is, should telcos just add edge compute at their existing sites and then expand using neutral host partners and public cloud platforms? Or do they need to add more physical sites? So this is a real sort of almost a real estate question in terms of telco edge. Does anybody want to pick up on this one first?
There is obviously a dependency on every service provider. Every telco is different, has a different reach, has a different type of service. So what I can do is provide the Colt perspective to that answer and share with the audience what we are planning. So in our case, we don't see the need to build dedicated new sites to support our distributed edge. So for us, the distributed edge, as we discussed during the debate, the panel, we have both on-premise edge, which is clear that we deploy in customer premise. And then we have our network edge that we deploy either in our own telco nodes, in our own data centers, or even third-party data centers where we already have a network presence. So with that infrastructure and based on the coverage that we have, the services that we want to deliver, we have more than enough. Answering the straight question, do we need to build dedicated or new sites to support the distributed edge? Definitely for us, the answer is no. So on-premise edge is one thing. Then in terms of network edge, we just used built on top of our current network infrastructure, wherever it is, and deploy the distributed edge.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Yes, Beth.
I'll build on that, although we did leverage our build out for 5G, which obviously involves densification. We are building new sites, we're building new POPs, but they're for our 5G deployment, and they can be used, and they are being used for our edge applications at the same time. So everything's doing double duty. I wouldn't say we're building dedicated, edge presences beyond, obviously at the customer site, which is specific to the customer.
Okay, excellent. And Azhar?
Yeah, quick one. I do get questions from different telcos in terms of, particularly around the world, where should I deploy my edge? And the answer depends on, what is the service that you're really trying to light up? And what service are you really trying to deliver? Based on that, you can determine what is the right location for you to go deploy that particular edge. Now, that location might be part of your infrastructure, or it might be a colo with somebody else, or it might be that you're leveraging a public cloud provider's presence, or vice versa, right? So to me, the answer on whether you need to build out dedicated edge or can you just look at your footprint, I think all telcos, in my opinion, are evaluating their footprints to see where they should do it. Verizon, I think Beth already gave you an example. I know of some other providers where they have regionalized data centers in 26, 30 locations around the country in US. Do they need to go further out from there as they start to go deploy RAN and maybe even light up some more compute capability to host applications at those RAN CU locations? Perhaps they do. And when they get to that particular RAN point, they can then light up for edge as well. I don't think anybody will just deploy edge. They'll probably look at some sort of a multi-purpose environment to go actually make that business case and then go deploy that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points, Azhar. And Balaji, we'll come to you as well.
So I think this is one of those questions where the answer is maybe all of the above or most of the above type of answer, right? I agree with Azhar that this is more like an optimization problem where the provider needs to understand what all assets they have and look at it from an inventory planning perspective as to can they reclaim some of the things that they already have? How do they augment this with some of the new virtualization and hyperscaler infrastructure trends? And how do they sort of infuse that to their existing planning processes? And then make a decision on whether we need to build more edges, which location, and so on, right? So I think it's a mix of things that lead to sort of an optimization.
Absolutely. And it's clear that the whole industry is learning. We've seen that in the conversations, even in the past year. And this is where information sharing and partnerships and collaboration really come into play, of course, sharing examples and helping each other out in many cases. Okay, Guy, I'm going to hand back over to you at this point. And is this the end of the show? Have we
I'm afraid it's the end of the show. Yeah, we have indeed. We've talked ourselves out of time. Those questions certainly generated a lot of discussion, which is absolutely fantastic. And that's really what we aim to achieve with the after show. Thank you so much to all of our guests who joined us for this live program and to the audience for sending in their questions. And that is also the end of our Edgenomics Summit for this year. So our thanks to the guests who joined us for this second year of Edgenomics. But before we go, we want to give you a short preview of what you can watch on Telecom TV next week. Well, I hope that has piqued your interest. Something there for everyone, I hope. And lots of opportunities for you to get involved. Just take a look at the website, you'll find full details there. So join Ray and me again on Monday next week for the first of our special after shows as we turn the spotlight on 5G. Goodbye for now.
The after show was recorded in front of a live online audience.